Welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Jakey. That's coming to you on a Wednesday because I'm late again. But you know what? There's a quote from Henry David Thoreau who says, I have no time to be in a rush. And that's how I feel about this podcast sometimes because I say it's Tuesdays with Jakey and I aim to get it out on Tuesdays. And lately I've been waiting till Tuesday to record, where I used to record on Monday. And I can only record when I have something to say, you know what I mean? And when I have the energy. And I am low energy right now, or have been, because I just did a massive road trip. And I'll get into that in a minute. But here I am. This doesn't look like Idaho, does it? Nowhere you've seen me in Idaho anyway, because I was never anywhere with a lawn. And now here's a lawn. And these mountains behind me, these are, I don't know what they're called, but I am in Salt Lake City, home of the Mormon Church, home of 8-bedroom houses, with huge storage spaces downstairs for dry goods, for the pioneer folk. I am in Salt Lake City, and I am no longer in Idaho. My possessions are no longer in Idaho. My heart is no longer in Idaho. It's with Idaho, but it's not in it. My body's certainly not in it, and probably won't be for quite some time. Last week, I think I mentioned on the podcast, but certainly when I was heading to Salt Lake on my bike, I felt a couple of things. I felt, oh my God, this is where I belong. I felt that the first day I was back on it, really, but then it took me 2 days to get to Salt Lake from Boise. And that's when I really realized, like, yeah, there's no going back. Like Don Henley said, don't look back. You can never look back. So I'm looking forward. And on my way to Salt Lake, I was like, yeah, I'm 100%. I'm not going back to Idaho for sure. I kind of already knew that. I knew that. But sometimes it takes time to wrap your head around situations like that. But yeah, then I was like, what am I going to do? And I had hit up a friend who moved from New York City to Salt Lake during the pandemic because his corporate law job, I think that's what you call it, head legal counsel for a startup. Is a startup a corporate thing? Probably, especially if they have a lot of money. Enough to hire my friend as a lawyer. I'd hit him up and said, hey, you want to go to Supercross? And he was like, yeah, fuck yeah. Come on down to Salt Lake and stay for as long as you'd like, which is a term I've heard plenty in the past couple of years. I'd heard it plenty before that, but I never believed it. And now I'm starting to believe it. Not only believe it, but I'm starting to embrace it. And one of the things about depression, and especially suicidal depression, is you start to feel like you're a burden to your friends. That's something I've read about in other cases of people who are suicidal. And I certainly felt myself. Like, I honestly felt that nobody liked me, they tolerated me at best, and that I had just become a burden on my friends because I was such a crazy person. And most of that is stuff I made up in my head, and I figured that out finally when I did finally reach out for help. All my friends snapped into action and saved my life, basically. I've detailed all of that on other podcasts, so I'm not going to get too into it right now. But I've started to embrace that, especially after I got out of treatment and then when the pandemic started. Once I decided to give up my apartment in New York and just hit the road, I had a lot of people saying, you can come stay with me. And originally when I left and got on my motorcycle and was just riding around out west, I had kind of thought I was going to like go to Idaho for a little bit, maybe go to California for a bit, Arizona, Texas, all places I had friends, Colorado, who said I could stay as long as I wanted and who had reasonable setups for me to stay at during a pandemic, meaning reasonable setups, meaning a second guest house type of thing or a huge house where I wouldn't be in their hair. And we could kind of coexist without breathing each other's noxious COVID fumes all day. And that's when I really started to feel like, all right, like, yeah, people like me. They want me to hang out with them. And then I ended up in Idaho, in McComb, Idaho, and my friend said, stay as long as you'd like, and I stayed for 2 years, kind of. in Idaho anyway. I ended up staying in McComb for a year. Then I found Yellow Pine and ended up staying there for, Jesus, 10 months. And then I thought I was just going to pass through Salt Lake for a couple of days and go to the Supercross race. And we went to the Supercross race. And we hung out for a few days, me and my buddy Jordan. And at a certain point, he was like, "So what are you doing? Like, you don't want to be a short order cook anymore?" And I was like, I didn't mind being a short order cook. But I was like, yeah, no, I'm, tomorrow after the motorcycle races, I'm gonna go rent a truck and I'm gonna go up to Yellow Pine. I'm gonna grab my stuff, put it in storage in Boise, I guess, and then I'm gonna fly to New York, come back to Salt Lake, get my bike, and move along. And he was like, why don't you just leave your stuff at my place for a while? And mikasa e sukazu. You can hang out here, ride around on your motorcycle, come back whenever you need to. And that's the thing Greg and Shanti told me when I first got to McComb. They were like, just use this as a base camp. And that's exactly what Jordan said. And then his girlfriend, Jules, said, well, you don't have to rent a truck. You can just use my pickup truck. And I was like, well, hell yeah. But really, I was like, are you serious? Because I'm still, it's funny, I'm still a little taken aback when people are generous to me. And especially this woman, Jewel, who I barely even knew. But I guess she knew that I was an important person in Jordan's life, and he was an important person to me. And she said, hey, if he's important to my man, he's important to me. And that's what happened. The next day, Sunday, we, let me get to the motorcycle race. Let me go all the way back. Because I have no time to be in a rush, Like, this podcast can be as long or as short as I want, as Paul Hanley reminded me a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, I went and got my motorcycle. I talked about that. I rode through a lot of cold and rain and fog, and then finally it got a little sunny on me for my last push into Boise. That was like a 5-hour ride that day, and spent one more night at my buddy Fishmark's house, guy who works for the Fish and Game up in Yellow Pine. They let me use his house in Boise, and brought my motorcycle there, spent one more night there, got up, packed all my stuff up, and I hit the road. And I was going to go to West Wendover, Nevada, which is on the border of Wendover, Utah. There's Wendover on the east side of the state line and West Wendover on the west side of the state line. And right outside of Wendover, Utah are the Great Bonneville Salt Flats, which I've been to twice before on my bike and wanted to visit again. And also, to get from Boise to Salt Lake, it's just one long interstate route. And you've heard me say before, and if you're anybody who's experienced in road trips, I hope you'll agree that interstates, they're no fun, man. They're certainly no fun on a motorcycle, and they're not really fun in a car. They're only good if you need to get from one place to another as quickly as possible. State roads are much better. Rural roads are even way better. But whenever possible, try to find a 2-lane highway, because it's going to be a little curvier, it's going to be a little hillier, it's just going to be more scenic, and you're going to find more out-of-the-way businesses, and you're going to find a lot less chain businesses, because the state routes are going to go through smaller towns, and they haven't popped up big travel centers and big commercial areas around the exits like interstate towns did. So I headed down to Twin Falls on the interstate in 84 it is, and then I got to Twin Falls and I stopped at the Perrine Bridge, which is a beautiful arch bridge. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but it's got a big arch underneath it, and then it's a flat bridge. So I don't know what that's called. Feels like an arch bridge. And that's a bridge that's famous for, it goes over the Snake River, which is where Evel Knievel tried to jump on his sky cycle. And it's a famous stretch of the Snake Canyon where base jumpers jump off, not exactly the bridge, because I think they used to jump off the bridge, but the city of Twin Falls built a jumping platform for them to jump down into the Snake River Canyon. And the day I was there were a lot of base jumpers kind of hanging out, and it was super windy, so they weren't jumping that day. So I was like, okay, bummer, but I took in the sights of the Snake River for a while, and it was a beautiful emerald green color of the water, at least looking down from it. looking down on it from the bridge, and just kind of gazed out upon it for a while. And then I kept riding, and eventually I made it to Wells, Nevada, which is, you leave Twin Falls and you head due south, and you pass through Jackpot, Nevada, which is on the state line, and then you end up in Wells, Nevada. I could have kept going to Ely, Nevada, but I made a left in Wells, or I was planning to. But when I got to Wells, I was like, you know what? I'm a little tired. Long day of riding. My back kind of hurts. I'm not in shape for riding. I'd done a really long ride the day before, and it had already been like 5-hour day, and it was another hour to get to Wendover. But it was 3 o'clock, and I was like, you know what? There's a brand new Hampton Inn in this town. There's 2 brothels in this town. Not much else. 2 truck stops. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stay here for the night. And I found a good rate on the Hampton Inn. $116, which is cheap for a Hampton Inn, and it was a brand new one. I'd been through there a few times over the past couple of years, and I saw it under construction, so I knew it hadn't been open for too long, and it had a pool. Then I was like, I'm going to go in there. And I also was like, maybe I'll go to this brothel, because oddly enough, I've never been to a brothel on purpose. I ended up in one in Europe on the trip where I went to the premiere of the U2 3D movie, ended up partying with Kid Rock. On that trip in Italy, I pulled over for the night and ended up going to a casino, like a James Bond style casino, where I put my tuxedo on and went in to try to blend in. And no matter what I'm wearing, or I don't blend in kind of anywhere. Maybe where do I blend in most? Maybe Gathering the Juggalos. But I typically stick out like a sore thumb because I just think I carry the vibe of like a little bit crazy, a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. And kind of wherever I go, people are like, what's up with this dude? Mostly in a good way, I think. Yeah, so I ended up down in Wells. Oh, in Italy, I was saying, yeah, I went to a brothel by mistake. And that's all chronicled in the Kid Rock story, which you can find on my blog, jakerocksoft.com. We're coming up on the 15-year anniversary of that story next week, a week from today or tomorrow. May 19th, I believe that was. So maybe I'll repost that podcast for new listeners. And definitely going to repost that story next week. 15 years. Holy cow. Sometimes it feels like it was just yesterday, but no, it doesn't. It actually, more than that, it feels like a lifetime ago. And I guess it was several lifetimes ago. And yeah, so I ended up in a brothel in Italy. But I realized I was just in a bar, and then upstairs with the brothel, and then I met a woman, and then I took her into a room, and I'm not going to give away the secret, but I can tell you we did not copulate. We did not fornicate, but it was a lot of fun that stayed with me for a little while. And no, not in a disease way, but I woke up the next day with a souvenir. So Wells. So I was like, maybe I'll go to this brothel, but I kind of knew I wouldn't, because I've been through a bunch of Nevada towns that have brothels, and I've stopped in them, and I'm like, I don't know. I think it's something I'm going to leave on my bucket list for a while. Because I feel like it would be really awkward, much like strip clubs are awkward. I find strip clubs terribly awkward because you can admire these women and you objectify them, and they can touch you, you can't touch them, and it's a whole feeling in frustration. But I feel like it would, I don't know, I just not really into having sex with somebody that doesn't want to have sex with me. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And I don't know when I will go to a brothel, but I'm kind of ruining the ending of that part because, yeah, there was no visit to the brothel. But I want to point out that it's one of the reasons I decided to stay. But even more importantly, I was like, it's 3 o'clock. It's check-in time for the hotel. If I push to Wendover to the Great Salt Flats, it'll just be less time in a hotel. And Wendover doesn't have any nice hotels. They have a few casinos. They have the Rainbow Casino, the Red Garter Casino, the Montego Bay Casino, and they have one other. I think it's called the Wendover Nugget. And then they have some shitty motels. But I was like, I want to stay in a nice hotel tonight. And when I say nice hotel, I mean a Hampton Inn. And I could have stayed in a Motel 6 for, what was that, $66 down there in Wells. But I was like, I'm going to stay in the nice Hampton Inn. It has a nice pool. And I went to check in. I bought it. on my hotel app at the gas station, literally went across the street. And, I'm so thrifty that I look for hotels on hotels.com, then I find the price, and then I go to the hotel website. And if it's the same price, I book it on hotels.com because for every 10 free stays, I get a free stay. But if it's cheaper on the hotel's website, then I book it there. And if it's just a shitty little motel that doesn't have a website, then I just go in and pay cash typically. But I looked, I booked it. I was like, I could stay at the Motel 6. No, I'm going to go to the Hampton Inn. I'm going to use this pool. And I pulled up and I went in there to check in. And the desk clerk was a youngish, Mexican-looking, Latino-looking dude. And looked like he was in his early 20s. And he had glitter polish on his fingernails. And I was like, oh, hey, man, I love your nail polish. And whenever possible, man, try to make a hotel clerk feel good. Because they can give you a good room or a bad room. And if you think a hotel like a Hampton Inn only has the same kind of room, you're wrong. Any hotel has good rooms and bad rooms, right? Like there's rooms near the ice machine, there's rooms near the elevator that are going to get more foot traffic. There's two sides of every hotel, right? That's going to have better views on one side than the other. They know that there's rooms with bigger bathrooms because of strange layouts. Like the check-in clerk is going to know every room in the hotel, and they're going to put you, if you're rude to them, they're going to put you in a bad one, I would assume. I'm never rude to clerks. But I also have read, I read a lot of like travel tip articles, and I've read that when you book on a third party thing, they're going to give you the less good room. But I think that's more of like at higher end hotels when they have a lot more people who are checking in under rewards programs and stuff, and people who they know stay there all the time, business travelers and things like that. I don't think there's a lot of business travelers staying in Wells, Nevada. There can't be many because there's nothing there. There's no airport even close by. Where would the closest airport be? I guess you can fly to Twin Falls, probably, but that's still 2 hours away. Certainly no airport in Wendover, Nevada, and Salt Lake City's 3 hours in the other direction. So yeah, I don't think there's a lot of business travelers. I don't know why they built a massive 3-story huge Hampton Inn with an indoor pool, but they did. And so I'm kind of being a little flirty with the little boy Christian, and told him I loved his nail polish, and he was like, "Oh my God, thank you." And I was like, "Whoa, okay." I could almost grasp the feminism with effeminatism with my hand. Anyway, it was super obvious. I was like, yo, this dude's gay. Okay, cool. And then he was like, well, thank you very much. Oh, I love your hair. And I was like, oh, thank you, man. He's like, I would love to do that with my hair, but hotel management would not like it. And I'm going to a music festival in 2 weeks, and oh my God, I would love to do my hair like you have yours. And I was like, oh shit, what music festival are you going to? And he's like, EDC. And I was like, oh, Electric Daisy Carnival. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, down in Vegas, that should be a good time, man. You're going to party hard, huh? And he's like, yeah. And we chatted a little more, and he asked if I traveled a lot. And I was like, yeah, man, I ride my bike all over. And he was like, where are you headed now? I was like, I started in Boise, going to Salt Lake. I'll make it there tomorrow. I'm going to go by the Salt Flats, just chewing the fat, shooting the shit, so to speak. And then he started telling me about how he wished he could travel more, and he had to leave home recently because he finally came out to his parents and they were not thrilled, and he had to move away, and then he got this job. And I didn't ask where he was originally from, but or how he ended up in Wells, but we chatted while he was getting my check-in ready, and then he was ready, and I was like, oh, how's the pool too? And he was like, oh, the pool's lovely, it's indoor and it's heated. And I was like, fuck yeah, man, that's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to use it. And he was like, yeah. And then he was like, I get off work at 10 o'clock, maybe you want to go have a couple of drinks with me, we could have some fun. And I was like, oh man, wow, thank you. And inside I was like, fuck no, dude. But on the outside, I was like, hell yeah, man, maybe. Like, I'm pretty tired. I had a long day of riding, so I don't know if I'm going to be up for hanging out at 10 o'clock, but, like, I'll let you know later on. And he was like, okay, great. And then I went to my room, and he had put me on the ground floor, which I found odd because it was a 3-story hotel, and I was hoping he'd put me on the 3rd floor. Then I was like, man. And then I went in there, and if you've ever stayed at a Hampton Inn, most of the rooms kind of are the same, but he put me in this, like, massive room. It was like it was probably twice the size of the house I lived in Macomb. It was big, and it was kind of like a suite. It definitely had, like, you walked in and there was a like mini kitchenette, which I've never seen in a Hampton Inn, and then there was a living room with a couch and then a huge desk that separated the living room area from the bedroom area. Then it had a huge bathroom, bigger than I'd ever seen, no tub, but a nice, beautiful kind of rainforest kind of shower. And I was like, this is fucking great. And I put my bags down and I took my clothes off and I laid down on my bed and I meditated, and then I just kind of hung out for a while, read for a little while, and I was like, man, I'm going to go to the pool now. And I went to go to the pool, and there was a big sign on the door that said pool closed. So I went back to the check-in desk where I was wearing my Speedos and my flip-flops, my American flag Speedos and my flip-flops and a t-shirt, and I had a towel over my shoulder, and I was like, hey dude, what's up with the what's up with the fucking pool? And he was like, oh my god, a woman brought her dog in there, and now we have to close the pool until I can get the pool guy to come and clean the filter. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. I was like, you know, how the fuck did a lady bring her dog in the pool, you know? And it's not like supervised, you just need a room key to get in there. And he was like, I don't know, man, but I saw it, and as soon as I noticed on the camera, I ran in and I told her to take her dog out of the pool, and she did. And I was like, yeah, well, that sucks, but like, I checked into this hotel pretty much specifically for the pool, and I want to use the pool. I kind of don't really care if a dog just swam in it, you know? And he was like, yeah, I'd love to let you, but my manager's here, and if my manager sees you in the pool, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble. And I was like, fuck, man. He's like, I know, I'm sorry. And I was like, could you let me know if the pool guy comes today and cleans the filter? But by this point, it was like 4:30. I was like, I don't think the pool guy's coming today. And he was like, yeah, but I don't think the pool guy's coming today. And I was like, yeah, right, I know. And he was like, but maybe I'll see you later. And I was like, you know what, maybe, man. And he was like, all right. So I'm back to my room, and I was a little bummed out, but not so bummed, because I was in that beautiful, the bed was so comfortable. Hampton Inn, I would say, has the best, most comfortable beds for a midline hotel. I've never had an uncomfortable bed in a Hampton Inn, and they usually have really good pillows and pretty good bedding, and so I was just happy to be there. And I worked on some writing for a while, and I read for a while, then I watched some hockey playoffs, then I watched some pro wrestling, and then I went over to the McDonald's at the truck stop across the parking lot, and I got a big order of junk food, and then I smoked a little bit of reefer. When I went to get my bags, I had found a pre-rolled joint that I had bought last summer, in my bag with my camping gear, which had been stashed away for the winter. So I was like, well, look at that. I think it's the universe telling me, hey man, enjoy this room. And so I did. I had a couple toots of the reefer, and then around 8 o'clock, 8:30, I was like, yo, I'm so tired. And I swung back through the lobby, and because I didn't want to diss this kid, you know, and I just swung back through the lobby, and I was like, hey, Christian, I'm fucking so tired from my motorcycle ride. I really appreciate your invitation to hang out tonight, but I'm about to pass out. And he was like, oh my God, you look so tired. Yeah, I got some rest. And I was like, all right, man, well, you have a good night and have a great time at Electric Daisy Carnival. And I went back to my room, and I promptly fell asleep. And it feels hard to say this, but you know, I won't lie, because, you know, part of me was like, I hope the wind isn't bothering the microphone too much, but it's a little windy out here. I think I'm just getting distracted because this is hard to say, but I was like, you know, for a minute I was like, I did stop to kind of like maybe go to a brothel, and I was like, maybe I should just let Christian come in the room and let him give me a blowjob. That's a bit presumptuous, because maybe he wanted a blowjob. Maybe he's a bottom when it comes to mouth action. Maybe he was a top. I don't know. But I bring it up because I think about, like, you know, I'm still not ready. I'm obviously ready to talk about the fact that I was sexually abused as a child by multiple men. For a broad range of multiple men. But I'm not really into getting into the details, but I've read a lot about people who suffered sexual abuse as a child. And one of the things is that the first sexual acts you get into, especially when it's abuse and you're a young child, that shit gets imprinted on you and it stays with you for life. And I fantasize about sucking dick because I had to do it as a kid and as a young man. And I think that when I watch transsexual porn, I like to see a guy blowing the woman. Um, and like if you read porn stats, like transsexual porn is one of the one of the highest searched for categories. I don't know why most people look at it. I think there's probably some section of it is sort of closeted or latent homosexuality. Some of it might be childhood sexual abuse, but like sometimes I do fantasize about that, and then I put the porn on and I watch it and I masturbate, and as soon as I come, I'm like, oh, ugh. Like the idea of doing it, because I think about it, I'm like, every now and then I'm like, I'll look up transsexual prostitutes on the internet if I'm in some weird city, but I can never bring myself to do it. And then I jerk off, and then I'm happy that I didn't do it. And I imagine if I did it, like I did do some of that when I first moved to New York. Had some gay experiences, encounters that I forced to have happen, and a couple with transsexuals, because I was so confused because of my abuse. Like, did I want that? Am I secretly gay? And I think I've talked about that before. But every time I would do it, I would feel really dirty and shameful afterwards. And it wasn't really a turn on in the way I thought it would be. And that's, after a handful of those experiences, that's when I was like, oh, I'm fucking sure I'm not gay. And it's funny because that's when I started to really embrace my feminine side, with painting my fingernails and growing my hair extra long and dyeing it, and just kind of wearing bright colors and sort of being more flamboyant. It wasn't until I was actually secured my own sexuality through testing out different scenarios and situations that I started acting that way. And then I've never been insecure about my sexuality since, except for every now and then. I mean, I wouldn't even call that insecure about my sexuality, but more curious about performing or getting engaged in some of these different kind of acts. But needless to say, or I already said, I didn't get involved with Christian. And I did kind of fantasize about it in my room, but then I was like, that would be cool. That would be awkward if I invited him into my room, until I was about to have an orgasm, which would feel awesome, and then it would feel super awkward right away. And I was like, that's not even worth it. I'm just going to jerk off. But I did make a point to go out there and say thank you to him, if only because I flirted with him, obviously, because I wanted the good room. And also just like he had shared something with me, something very vulnerable about coming out to his parents. And I just wanted to make sure that he knew that I wasn't not connecting with him because he was gay or something. And I think I just wanted to be polite. Maybe I just want to leave the option open for next time I go through Wells. I don't think so, though. I did think of my buddy. I told my buddy, I was like, there's a fucking brothel here, and I kind of want to go, but also, like, I'm not going to spend that money. And he was like, yeah, I remember last time you were in Nevada, you fucking crowdsourced a stay at the Clown Motel. You should crowdsource a trip to the brothel. And I was like, that's a good idea. But I certainly wasn't feeling it. And I also thought it was funny when I crowdfunded a trip to the Clown Motel. But I didn't think crowdfunding a trip to the brothel would do me much good. Because I think a lot of people think it was really fucked up if I posted on social media like, hey, I want to go to a brothel. But I don't know, maybe one of these days I will. Or I'll just pony up my own dough. But I certainly, I also thought, how much could the brothel be? And I thought about calling them. It's called Bella's Ranch, if you're interested in checking it out. They had an FAQ page that I read, and they have pictures of all the women that are working there. They have pictures of all the women, but they have a little tab above them if they're there now that says, here now. And I read through it, but then I was like, you know what? If it's too expensive, I'm not going to feel good about paying for it because I'm trying to conserve funds. And if it's too cheap, I'm certainly not going to feel good about paying for it because nobody wants a cheap hooker, right? Even in a brothel. So I imagine I don't even know. If anyone out there knows and has visited one of these legal brothels in Nevada, feel free to let me know what the pricing's like. But I kind of imagine it would be between $300 and $500. And I did not want to pay that. And if it was like $200 or less, it's like, that's skeevy. Plus, the whole situation's skeevy, right? I don't know. They clean these sheets. I don't know. I just like, God bless those women, man. I hope they make money. And I hope they're okay with doing what they're doing to make money, and I hope they're not sex trafficked. But yeah, I didn't want to have any part of it, so I didn't. And I went to sleep early, and I had a nice sleep, and then I worked on some more writing when I woke up, and then packed my bags, because up there in the high desert, when you're at elevation, I think Wells is almost 5,000 feet elevation. Um, and in the high desert, it gets really cold at night, and it gets pretty hot during the day. And I woke up, I don't know, 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I looked at the weather, and it was like 43 degrees. So I was like, I'm not ready to leave. So I didn't actually end up leaving until noon, when it had warmed up to like 66 degrees. And then by the time I got to West Wendover and Wendover, it was like in the mid 70s. And packed my bike up, and I rode out there, and it's a straight blast. The road's basically straight. I mean, every road in Nevada is basically straight. They have very few curves and some hills. And I made it to Wendover and stopped, had a pee, got a little bite to eat. Might have visited a cannabis dispensary on the Nevada side of the border to pick up some supplies for a friend in Utah. I'm not going to say if I did, though, because it would be illegal to traffic drugs over state lines. But then I went to Wendover, and I went to the Great Bonneville Salt Flats, and it was a bit of an overcast day, and you get off the interstate and you ride about 4 miles to a sort of, the road just kind of dead ends at the edge of the Bonneville Salt Flats. The Bonneville Salt Flats are this massive expanse, maybe 40 miles long by 20 miles wide, that are just flat, hard packed salt that goes on for literally as far as the eye can see. And it gets used for like speed trials for like super fast cars, and it's where the land speed record has been broken several times. A lot of car commercials are filmed out there. They do like motorcycle drag races, and like it's just so flat and straight and open. You can just go for as long as you want and hit top speed, and you can kind of go in every direction. It's not like a drag strip where you have to wait in line. Like you just go find a section of the salt flats and just fucking start ripping around. And so there's this 4-mile pavement road that leads there, and then there's like a big sort of dead-end circle turnaround. And when I pulled up to that turnaround place, there were maybe, I don't know, 18 or 20 cars, and a lot of them like Jeeps and pickup trucks with trailers on them, 4x4 type of things. And they were all sort of like stopped, and you can look out into the long expanse of the salt flats, and I didn't see any cars out there. And I was like, well, this is weird. And at this point, it was probably like, I don't know, 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the afternoon, when I was like, why are there no cars out there? And it made me a little nervous. And as I got to the end of the pavement, it sort of dipped down into the salt flats, and there was like a huge kind of like pond of water that had collected. And I did a quick like mental calculation. I was like, well, it must have rained out here last night, because there's never any water out here. And I just dipped down off the pavement, went through the water, and I was a little nervous because I was like, I don't know how the salt's going to react to the water, and how much traction I'm going to get, or if my bike's going to get stuck down in there. Like the wheels will get stuck in the mushy, marshy salt. But I popped down, and it was no problem. No problem at all. I just went through the water, and then I got to the other side of the water, which is like, I don't know, 20 feet wide. And then I just cracked the throttle, and I didn't drive like a bat out of hell. But I was going like 70, 80 miles an hour. And after a couple of minutes, I looked in my rearview mirror, and it was like Braveheart. All the cars had come down onto the salt flats, and were all like, you could see them spinning up dust in the background through my mirror, and it was pretty cool. And I realized like they were all sitting there probably thinking the same thing that I thought quickly, which was like, is this water going to bog my car down? And I think once they saw my bike got through it fine, they all just kind of came down too. And I rode about 20 miles out. In the 3 times I've been there now, like pretty far out, there's like a huge rock formation that I thought I could probably get to. And this time I rode about 20 miles out, and I just kind of got tired of riding. I just wanted to go out to be in an area by myself and take out my folding chair and do some meditation and read for a while. And my folding chair, my camping chair. that's what I did. I just kept riding and riding and riding until I was done riding. And it was funny. It's the rock formation that I was trying to get to. Like, no matter how far you ride, it doesn't seem to get any closer. It's almost like an optical illusion. So I didn't make it out there. One of these days I will. You know, you want to leave things on your bucket list sometimes. Like, I'm not in a rush to do that because next time I go to the salt flats, maybe I'll ride all the way out there. And you're not allowed to camp on the salt flats, but you can camp up above them. On the far side of them from where the interstate passes them, there's a well, again, it's a state road, not an interstate, but there's actually it is an interstate. It's Route 80 that goes through there. Well, fuck me, yeah, it's a 2-lane interstate. But anyway, on the far side of the highway from the salt flats are some mountains, and there's a bunch of camping spots up there. So I think I'll go back there and camp at some point in the not too distant future. But I hung out there for a while, and I shot some cool pictures of my bike and video of me just kind of turning around in a 360 circle just to show how fucking vast and empty this area was. And after an hour or so of just hanging out there, I went back, and then on the way back, I saw this big fucking truck that would almost look like, I don't know, it almost looked like some army transport carrier or something, but it was painted flat black. And I had stopped to take a picture of Wendover Will, who's a massive, giant neon sign of a cowboy in Wendover, West Wendover. And I'd stopped to take a picture of him, and this thing had driven by me and honked its horn and waved at me because it saw me standing next to my bike. And then I finally got back on my bike after taking the picture, and I passed him on the highway, and then he gave me the little hang loose sign out the driver's side window as I passed him. So then he had a big trailer and truck, and it was all painted flat black, and it said Wazimu Life on the side, at Wazimu Life, like it was his social media handle. So when I saw him out on the salt flats, I like rode my motorcycle right over to where he was, and pulled up, and he was taking a motorcycle out of his trailer. So I certainly was like, oh, this guy will want to chat for a bit. So we chatted for a bit, and we talked about it. He was like, you got a lot of gear on your bike, you know? And I was like, yeah, well, just, he's like, you travel a lot on it? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I kind of live off of it, you know? I like go and live in different places and then ride around for a while when I don't have a place, and then I stay with friends or find a place, find a job, whatever. You know, I was like, you obviously look like you live in yours. And he's like, yeah, me and my girl have been living in it for 4 years. And I asked what Wazimu means, and it meant like a madness or something in Swahili. And it's like for people who won't prescribe to traditional norms or something like that. So that was their handle, and they let me look inside, and they had a little bulldog I played with for a little bit, and it was a nice little hang with them. And I was like, man, what kind of fucking fuel do you get in this? And he was like, we get 5 miles to the gallon. And I was like, that's $1 a mile. And he was like, uh-huh. And you know, I didn't get too into it, like, Jesus, how do you afford it, you know? And he said he just stops and works when he has to, and I told him I kind of do the same. And he had mentioned I was like, does anyone ever come up and knock on this? Because if you know about van life, everyone who lives in a van or a Sprinter talks about the dreaded knock on the window, which is usually some sort of authority, security guard or police officer telling you, like, hey, what are you doing here? You got to move along. You can't be sleeping in your van. And I was like, I bet nobody ever comes and knocks on this because it looks so imposing. He's like, almost never. It happened one time in Acadia National Park in Maine. And I thought about that later, and I was like, dude, you drove this rig all the way to Maine? That costs $1 a mile. And it had a lot of tires, and that's a lot of wear on tires, right? Because it had like multiple tires in the back, and then it had the trailer tires, and then the front tires. And I was like, these guys, they got to have some serious funding from somewhere to drive that thing back and forth around the country. But like, hey, man, everybody's got their hustle, so who knows what they do. No judgment. But like inside, it didn't seem that much roomier than a big Sprinter would be. Guess it was a little wider, and I guess if you're going to live in it, everything counts. But I mean, wouldn't you prefer a Sprinter that got 4 times as much gas mileage? But hey, man, everybody's got their own rig to drive. So I chatted with them for a while, and then I drove back to the far end of the salt flat. To be honest, like, they were only a few miles out anyway. So I'd already ridden back to the beginning of the salt flat. Then I got back on the road and came and visited my buddy Jordan, and pulled up to his house probably around 7 o'clock, and I was like, man, what a fucking cool house. He's got this massive, massive 8-bedroom house here in Cottonwood Heights, Utah, just south of Salt Lake City proper, and it's literally right outside the Canyon Road, maybe quarter of a mile outside the Canyon Road that goes up to Alta and Snowbird Mountains. And he was like, yeah, I love skiing. I wanted to be near the ski areas, and I wanted to get a big house. So if I ever need to rent it out, I can make my money back by renting it to ski group parties. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's smart. And I was like, was it hard to... was it hard to find an 8-bedroom house? And he was like, that they got nothing but 8-bedroom houses out here, man. It's Mormon territory. And then he showed me the basement, and apparently a lot of these houses out here in Utah in the Salt Lake area have these big cold storage rooms in the basement that are meant for storing food because the people came out here were like settlers and pioneers or something. And it's something about the religion. I don't know. Not even sure if what he was telling me was true, but it makes sense that they build the houses to be able to store 2 years of food. But like this is not a brand new house. This looks like it was probably built in the 80s or something. So nobody was pioneering then. So maybe it's doomsday preppers too. Maybe Mormons are doomsday preppers waiting for the rapture, and that's what the 2 years of supplies are for. But in the rapture, nobody's going to survive, right? All the good people are going to be taken up to heaven, I think, and the bad people are going to be sent to hell. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But it's a big-ass cool house in nice yard, beautiful view, as you can see behind me, if you're watching this on YouTube. And we had a good day. We hung out. What was that? That was Thursday. And then Friday, he worked. I did some work. And then we went on a motorcycle ride. Friday afternoon after he was done working, went on a long-ass ride. Probably rode for like 4 hours. All through these wild canyon roads and stuff. And we did make it up to Alta and Snowbird, up to like 8,800 feet where it was really cold. We got some cool pictures, got a couple of our bikes together. I keep saying I'm going to post things on the Tuesdays with Jakey Instagram. Maybe I will this week. I promise I will, except I don't know if I will. I don't really like posting things on social media anymore. I like posting stories. That's about it. It feels like a commitment to post an actual post on Instagram. Anyway, maybe I should, because if you listen to this podcast, you're probably interested in seeing pictures of where I've been, right? And not everybody's on social media every day, so not everybody's going to see my story. Anyway, who fucking cares? We got some good pictures, though. We took some good pictures up there of our bikes together, because of little cute bikes together, and Jordan and I had done a fair amount of riding over the years. I actually took him, after I bought my first BMW, I took him. I didn't really take him. We went together. We went to Las Vegas, rented bikes. I think it was July 2012. We went to see UFC fights. So it was Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen 2. This is about 6 months after Chael Sonnen had almost beat Anderson Silva. He beat him up for 4.5 rounds. And halfway through the fifth round, Anderson Silva was on the bottom getting beaten up and then just put him in a fucking triangle choke with his legs and tapped him out. And the whole fight, I remember, I watched that at Jordan's house on 72nd Street in New York City. It was me, Jordan, and Bear, and we were watching the fight. And Anderson Silva hadn't lost a round pretty much for his whole run as champion. And here he was getting beaten up by Chael Sonnen, which everyone thought was just like a feeder fight, right? They were just feeding him a guy to beat because he had run out of guys to beat. Nobody expected the fight to go that way. And then Anderson Silva said something in the end. I don't know if it was really true, if he took Chael Sonnen lightly, but you never know with Anderson Silva because he's such a weird fighter. But he said afterwards, he was like, he said, Chael Sonnen, he disrespected me jiu-jitsu game and said me getting a black belt from the Nogueira brothers is like getting it out of a Cracker Jack box. So I wanted to show him that you can beat me up all you want and then I can submit you at the last minute of the fight. And I was like, that doesn't really seem right, because why would you let yourself be in that much danger and get beaten up? But he never got beaten up in that fight. Anyway, they were fighting again. And Jordan and I were like, let's go see this fight. And I made a pact that night. I said to Jordan, if Anderson Silva wins, I'm going to get a spider tattoo because his nickname was the Spider, Anderson the Spider Silva. I was like, I'm going to get a spider tattoo with the Brazilian flag as the body of the spider. And he was like, yeah, word. And Anderson Silva won that fight. I believe he knocked Chael out in the second round. I think it got to 2 rounds. Gave him a vicious he had Chael up against the cage. I gave him a vicious flying knee to the chest that just crumpled Chael. And then Anderson jumped on him and punched the fuck out of him and knocked him out. Or he submitted to the punches before he got knocked out. And Jordan and I went crazy. And we had such a good time that night. We met the referee, Josh Rosenthal, after. Then we got in a limo, Cadillac Escalade, and had him take us to a tiki bar. And the driver might have sold us some cocaine. And I went to a tiki bar, and Andrew Dice Clay was there, and we met some girls, and ended up back at the hotel with them, and it was fucking great weekend. But we also rented motorcycles out there, and I think Jordan, I don't think he had bought his own motorcycle at that point, but he had taken the course to get his license, which is like an instructional course. So they kind of teach you how to ride motorcycles, and it's a 3-day course, and at the end of it, you get a waiver to take to the DMV to get your license. So it kind of, if you take that 3-day course, you don't need to do a DMV road test, and it's a very convenient way to get your license. And my friend Sarah got hers that way, and recently, and I'm proud to say she just bought a Ducati Scrambler as her first bike. And Sarah, fuck yes, I'm very proud of you, and I can't wait to ride with you. But Jordan and I rented 2 BMWs. I got the 1200 GS, and I think he got the 850 GS, which is a little smaller but smarter for a guy who didn't have a lot of experience on a bike. And we did a massive loop. We left Vegas, we ended up going through Zion, and we ended up at a LDS rodeo, Latter-day Saints rodeo, where there was a kid playing with his pet chicken in the bleachers of the rodeo. It was a really down-home, kids-friendly rodeo. There were a lot of kids involved in the acts, the rodeo acts, competitions, whatever, the heats, the events, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, it was a small little rodeo in Gunlock, Utah. We got speeding tickets on our bikes on that trip, and that night when we got to the hotel we stayed at, I remember we went to the hotel bar for a drink, and Jordan pulled out his phone and paid his speeding ticket right there on the spot, and I crumpled mine up and threw it in the trash. He was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I don't know, when am I ever going to be in Utah again? Who the fuck cares, you know? Let him come and get me." I never heard anything else about it, by the way. I guess if I get pulled over in Utah, maybe I'll have that problem. But I did the same thing. 1998, 97, 98, I got a speeding ticket in Idaho. I remember, and I did the same thing. Like when we got to the next rest stop, I just crumpled it up and threw it away. The guys I was with at that point were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "When am I going to be in Idaho again?" And then when I went to pay that speeding ticket, or I went to not pay it, but when I went to register my car, when I bought a car, I was like, "Oh, I got to go register it, and I got to give my driver's license." And I did, and nothing came up. I was ready for them to be like, "You have a speeding ticket, unpaid speeding ticket from 1998," but it never came up. I don't know. Maybe it'll come up in Utah if I ever have to register a bike here, but who knows? Who cares, really? Like, if I do have to pay it, I'll pay it, but I probably won't. I'm sure they write those things off after a certain amount of time, you know? Yeah, so the moral of the story is if you ever get a speeding ticket from a different state, I don't know, computers are so different now. I mean, that last one was 10 years ago. But my advice, if you ever get a speeding ticket in another state, especially one that's not adjacent to yours, if it's on the other side of the country, just fucking throw it away. Let them come and get you, right? Track me down, motherfucker. You want your speeding ticket money? But yeah, we had a crazy ride. So we looped up through Gunlock. We went through Zion National Park. We ended up going down through Monument Valley. And then down through Arizona into the Grand Canyon. We spent a night. It's almost impossible to get reservations at the hotels at the Grand Canyon. We were at the South Rim. But Jordan knew a guy who was working there or something and got us in. So we got to stay at the Grand Canyon Hotel and went and explored a little bit. And then made it back to Vegas. And we actually went to the Hoover Dam. And ended up making it back just in time for the fights. Literally, got back to Vegas, got to the hotel, showered, and got to the fights. So I think it was 4 or 5 days of riding, and then the fights, and then we went home a couple days later. Stayed in Vegas a little bit. It was 4th of July weekend. Great fucking time. Um, and then we went to the motorcycle races on Saturday. Jordan's girlfriend has a 5.5-year-old son named Luke, and we went. He was like, "Hey, just tomorrow morning, heads up. Like, I got Jordan's son Luke has a soccer game at noon," and I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Am I going to go to the soccer game?" He's like, "If you want to." And he looked a little surprised. I was like, "Fuck it, man. I'll go watch a kid's soccer game." It was kind of entertaining. Kids don't really know how to play soccer. 5-year-olds, you know what I mean? They kick the ball in one direction, and they kick the ball in another direction, and, like, there's no real skill involved. But, no skill. That's, kicking a ball is a skill, right? But, yeah, it wasn't too exciting. But it was fun and funny to watch. We did that, then we went out, had fucking great lunch with pizza, and kind of stuffed ourselves. And after the ride with Jordan, we went to the Salt Lake City Bees game. That's right, minor league game on Friday night. Went to the Salt Lake City Bees game, and I was like, "I'm gonna catch a foul ball, man. I'm gonna catch a fucking foul ball." And we were sitting down the third baseline, and we were probably 10 rows from the field. And wouldn't you know it, second inning, guy fucking hits a foul ball up in the air. I had to dive literally over a row of seats, landed kind of on the seat arms, and then fell down onto the cement, but I got the fucking ball. And there was nobody sitting in those seats, by the way, when I dove onto them. I probably wouldn't have dove if there were people there. I say probably, but I got the ball, and I was excited. And Jordan was like, "That was fucking commitment. You wanted that ball." And I was like, "Hell yeah, I did." And I was so excited. I got a foul ball. And kept just like playing with it and putting it in my hand and looking at it, but like, I got a foul ball. First time I ever got a foul ball at a baseball game. I did get a ball during batting practice at the Yankee Stadium in 2006, maybe 5 or 6. Actually 2005. Yeah, I was a season ticket holder, and I went to the last game of the season, and I showed up at doors open at 11 o'clock for a day game, and I was like, I'm going to go right up to the fucking wall, and I'm going to try to get one of these guys to give me a ball during batting practice. And I got there. I meant to get there at 11. I got there around 11:30, and there were already tons of kids against the wall begging for every ball that got hit during batting practice. And I was like, fuck, I'm not going to get in the way of these kids. And then I stayed there for like a half an hour, and Gary Sanchez, right fielder for the New York Yankees, Gary Sheffield, hit a fucking ball down the right field line, went foul, bounced around in some seats, popped up, and I got it. And that wasn't a game ball, that was a batting practice ball. So now I can finally say I got a ball that was hit during a game, but it was minor league. So I still want to catch a major league foul ball. But it's a really big deal in America to get a foul ball at a baseball game. Kind of a rite of passage, so I'm glad I finally got it. And then we went walking around, and we changed our seats a few times, and then we went to the outfield because there's like a lawn to sit on, and there's a little choo-choo train that they take kids around the outfield in, minor league ballpark stuff. And when we were out in the outfield, this little girl was like racing with her brother and mother and running back and forth, and she kept looking at my ball. So one time when she came running by me, I just held the ball out, and I was like, "Here, this is for you." And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, you can have this." And then she grabbed it out of my hand and like had the biggest smile on her face, little ginger girl. And Jordan was like, "Oh my God, that was so cool." And I was like, "I know, right?" And he's like, "How selfless of you." And I was like, "Well, kinda." I was like, yeah, it felt nice to give it to that girl, but also I live on a motorcycle. Like, I don't need any more crap, And he was like, "Yeah, of course." He had another friend on Instagram was like, "Oh my God, you caught a foul ball." And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "What are you going to do with it?" And I was like, "Well, I actually gave it away." And she was like, "Oh, I wouldn't do that." And I was like, "Yeah, well, I don't want to carry it around." And she was like, "Oh, I thought you were being selfless." I guess not. And I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, like, it is kind of selfless, but it wasn't completely selfless in giving it away. I'll cop to that. Yeah, then the next day we went to Luke's soccer game. That was funny. Then we went to a big lunch, came back, took a nap for like a half an hour, and then we went to Supercross. And the way a Supercross season works is that there's a whole season of Supercross, and it's done in points, scored in points. So if you win, you get 26 points, I think. Second place gets 23 points. Third place gets 22 or 21 points, and then it goes down from there. Um, and Eli Tomac had already secured the championship in the second to last race of the season, because even if he didn't get any points and the second place guy got first place, so it got all the points that you could get in one race, Eli was still going to be the champion. So Eli fucking quit, man. I was kind of bummed because I wanted to see him race, but he didn't race because he was like, I already won the championship. Like, I don't want to risk hurting myself or whatever. I don't know, though, because he's not a guy who crashes a lot, so I don't understand why he didn't race. But he didn't. I would have liked to see him win one more in the season, because he had a stretch earlier in the season where he won like 5 races in a row. And you go to those events because you want to see the greatest. I go to sporting events typically because I want to see like the greatest athletes do their thing, right? And so like I made sure I saw Michael Jordan play. I made sure I saw Kobe Bryant play. I made sure I saw LeBron James play. And at this race, I wanted to see Eli Tomac race, but he didn't race. But there was a big beef with Justin Barcia and Malcolm Stewart, who were kind of battling for third place on the season. And they've gotten into some tangles. They've kind of crashed into each other. And it's mostly Justin Barcia is the bad guy. Malcolm Stewart's the good guy. Meaning Justin Barcia is the one who's kind of been cheap. Like, you can kind of like, when you're in a corner with someone, you can like kind of like cut them off and cause them to crash. And Justin Barcia did that a few times this season with Malcolm Stewart. And then at one point, their bikes got tangled up, and Malcolm was trying to get to his bike to get it up off the ground and get back on it and keep racing. And Justin was like in his way, and Malcolm Stewart just shoved him to the ground. And that was fucking great. And the fans went crazy because Justin had caused the crash. And this time, probably like 5 minutes into the main event race, which was a 20-minute race, about 5 minutes in, they came into a corner together. Malcolm was on the outside, Justin was on the inside, and Justin cut him off and then like threw his shoulder into him and like sent Malcolm's bike falling over and Malcolm flying off the bike. And he lost a few spots, and he got back on his bike and was riding like a bat out of hell and made up all the spots that he lost, and then was closing in on Barcia and got down to within like a second of him by the last lap and never caught up with him. But the stadium was going fucking bananas because they wanted to see Malcolm catch up to him and kind of give him his comeuppance. And it didn't happen, but Malcolm did end up taking third place for the season. And then doing the interviews at the end of the race, the crowd was going bananas when they were showing Malcolm, and then when they showed Justin Barcia, everyone was totally booing. And Luke, the 5-year-old, was having a fucking blast, and Jordan and Jewel got into it. And I'd never been to the finale of the season. The season finale for Supercross traditionally has always happened at Sam Boyd Stadium in Las Vegas, but this year, for some reason, they brought it to Salt Lake and to the Rice-Eccles Stadium, which is where the University of Utah plays their football games. And it was a great time. I'm so glad I did it. Yeah, so that was that. And then, then the big news. So I wake up the next morning, and we go on like a moderate big hike, 2.5 hour hike. And then we got back at like noon, and I went over to Jules' house, and she gave me the keys to her truck, and I got in her truck, and I drove all the way to Yellow Pine. I got in the truck at 12:14, and I got to Yellow Pine at exactly 9:28. So it was 9 hours and 14 minutes of driving. And I wasn't expecting to make it all the way there, but I just kind of powered through. And when I got to Cascade, which is the closest town to Yellow Pine, the only motel I could get was $106. And I was like, I'm not paying $106. And I was like, there's probably about 2 hours of daylight left. I should be able to get there before it gets dark. And it was like the sun had set at 8:57 according to the internet. But after official sunset, there's still light in the sky for a while. So it was just getting to the point where it was going to be too dark to see, and I was going to have to like rely on my headlights. I had turned my headlights on earlier because you do that at dusk, especially when you're on a 1-lane twisting road for 33 miles. But I got into town right as it was getting dark, got into the tavern. It was fucking freezing cold at that point. It was like 30 degrees, and the forecast was for it to get down to 22 overnight. So I started a fire in the wood-burning stove, and I bundled up. I slept in the room above the tavern. I could have slept at the bunkhouse at Candy and Willie's, and I had my keys, but I was like, you know what? Karmically, it feels right to sleep in the in the tavern one more time for my last night in Yellow Pine, basically, unless I go back to visit. And I did. I had stored my stuff in that storage room above the tavern where there's two fucked up twin beds, like saggy mattress, dirty sheeted. They're not dirty sheeted because Loren cleans them every now and then, I guess. I think. But just like tattered sheeted, shitty beds. So yeah, I stayed in there and I was very cold throughout the night. And even though there was a fire in the stove, it didn't really heat up the whole building. Certainly not the little storage room that well. But I did sleep up there. I got kind of like a second wind of energy, and I brought half of my stuff downstairs the night before, and then the next, I woke up at like 7 o'clock in the morning. Loren was coming in at 9, so I brought the rest of my stuff downstairs and started bringing it out towards the front door so I could put it in my truck. And then Loren came in at 9. She made me breakfast. I had my therapy call at 9:30, and then I loaded my truck up, and then I went to Canyon Willie's and picked up a few things I had left behind there, like my cross-country skis and my snowshoes. Went to the post office, cleared the mail out of my my P.O. box, and then went back to the tavern, and Lynn, Emil, and Cindy were there, and Loren, who were my coffee ladies throughout the winter, the ones I had coffee with every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I chatted with them for a while. And then Josh, the guy who bought the tavern from Loren, he came by, and I told him I wasn't going to be working anymore, and he seemed a bit surprised, but not too fussed. And it was very easy. And then eventually I just left. And I left around noon again. And then that day I drove back to Cascade. Then I drove to Greg and Shanti's house, which is the opposite direction of Salt Lake City. When I got back out on the main road in Cascade, which is 2 hours. Then I drove a half an hour back up to McCall, dropped off my cross-country skis and my snowshoes, which I kind of donated to Greg and Shanti's property for when they have more friends come and stay. If anyone has size 13 and stays with Greg and Shanti, they can use my cross-country skis. Snowshoes size are universal. I gave them my downhill skis too, and then I went by Dan and Patsy's, the farm that I used to work at, and hung with them for like a half hour. It was nice to see them. Dan still hasn't sold my car. He doesn't seem any closer to selling it. But whatever. I don't care. Then I drove down to Boise, and I stopped and saw Fish Mark, whose house I had stayed at last week before I went to pick up my motorcycle, and watched the end of a basketball game with him. And then I thought I was just going to drive to like Mountain Home or Twin Falls. And then I started thinking, like, I passed Mountain Home, and I was like, I'll go to Twin Falls. And then that'll put me like 3.5 hours outside of Salt Lake, and drive back the rest of the way on Tuesday. And this was Monday afternoon or Monday evening. And then I got to Twin Falls, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, all my belongings are in the back of this pickup truck. And I'm not going to load them into a hotel, because that's a lot of stuff to fucking deal with. And I was like, I'm not going to leave this stuff in a pickup truck in Twin Falls, which is a very sketchy town, kind of a methy town. Then I was like, fuck it. I'll keep driving to Burley. And I drove to Burley, which is south of Pocatello, which is the southeastern part of Idaho, which is tons of cattle, like, what do they call those? Cattle, like cattle factories, factory farming with cattle down there. And people had told me about it. I'd totally forgotten about it, but I pulled into Burley and filled up the gas tank, and I got out of the truck, and it fucking stunk like cow farts so bad. And then I remembered people had said, like, yeah, there's a bunch of towns in southeastern Idaho where there's just so many factory cow farms that at all you could just smell the methane everywhere. So I got back in my car very quickly, and I was like, fuck it, I guess I'm just going to drive all the way back to Salt Lake City. Because once you leave Burley, you don't see anything for like an hour and a half, and then there's this town called Tremonton, which I'd stopped in before on my motorcycle one night to get some gas, and I was like, that town seems sketchy too, and I was like, I'm not leaving my fucking belongings outside. And then I was like, I'll feel so much better if I get home. And I did, and I made it home. I pulled into the house here at like 2 a.m. and by the time I got to sleep, it was like 4, and then I set my alarm for 7 because I had a big show going on sale, a boat ride with the Screaming Cheetah Wheelies, and I had to be awake to make sure the on sale went well and the ticket link worked and everything. And usually I don't worry, but we did two reunions. There's a reunion of a band called the Screaming Cheetah Wheelies that I used to book at the Wetlands days, and then their singer Mike Ferris went solo when they broke up. and him and I are super tight, the kind of tight where we stay at each other's houses. I've let him stay with me so many times when he's played in New York. I stayed with him down in Nashville. I'm very good friends with his son and his wife, and so it was like the on sale for the shows at the Gramercy, something went sideways on Live Nation. Didn't have them enabled right for the pre-sales, and I didn't want that to happen again. So I woke up early, and then I powered through the whole day yesterday. And I thought I was going to record the podcast, and then Jewel texted me and was like, hey, you want to, we did something to surprise Jordan. I don't think he listens to this podcast, so I needed to go to Home Depot because one of his toilet seats was broken, and I texted her, and I was like, hey, I don't think Jordan would be bothered by this, but do you? Because, you don't want to take someone's toilet seat off their toilet if it's broken, even if it's broken, you know what I mean? So I was like, hey, do you think Jordan would mind if I, went to Home Depot and changed out his toilet seat? And she was like, oh, my God, I think that would be awesome. And she's like, I actually want to surprise him too. He's got these big planter pots in his backyard. I was thinking I'd surprise him with all these flowers in them. Let's go to Home Depot together. So we went to Home Depot together, and then we came back, and then she was like, hey, would it be cool if I brought Luke over? He was getting out of school late afternoon, and her mother had picked him up or whatever, and she was like, hey, is it cool? I'll go get some pizza, and I'll bring Luke over, and we can I can put all the plants in the pots and make sure they look cool and everything. And I was like, yeah, cool. Cause we're surprising Jordan because he's back in New York working. He comes back tomorrow. I go back to New York tomorrow. We're going to crisscross in the sky. But I was like, yeah, that's fine. And she's like, okay, but that's going to mean you're going to need to play soccer with Luke or something and keep him occupied while I'm planting all the flowers and stuff. And she's like, is that okay? Does that sound like it'll be fun to you? And I felt so bad, but I looked at her and went, fun? Fun? And she's like, and I think she understood what I meant, but I didn't mean it. It was just instinct. Fun? Of course that's not going to be fun. But I was like, and then I tried to fake some enthusiasm and be like, yeah, I'll do that. Trying to motion my arms here. If you're watching the video looks much better if I have light on me and it's gotten dark outside and it's motion sensor light. So I don't know how to turn regular lights on. So I just kind of wave my arm a little to keep the motion sensor light on. But yeah, I did end up playing hide and seek with him, and then wiffle ball and soccer, and man, just he's a nice kid and all, but I got a 20-minute time limit of playing with children before I'm like, all right, I'm done, and that's 20 minutes as being generous. But I did, and she got all the plants done. Then we ate pizza, which was nice, and Fish Mark had given me some chocolate chip cookies from Trader Joe's, so I gave him a couple of cookies, and then they went home. And then I gotta say, today I kind of slept all day because I had only slept 3 hours the night before, and then I powered through that whole day. And today I slept like a rock last night for 10 hours. Then I was up for a few hours, did a few work things, then took a nap. Then took another nap, then went out and washed my motorcycle. I washed the last remnants of salt off of it. It took 2 washes to get all the salt from the great salt flats of Bonneville off of it. And then I came back here, and now I'm doing the podcast. And then I'm going to go to New York tomorrow, and I'm going to work some boat shows. I worked 1 boat show last year with the Pie Tasters, and otherwise hadn't worked one since 2019. So I'm going to work. I have 3 shows going on. 2 of them are simultaneous, so I can only work 1. We have Schism, the tribute to Tool, which is sold out on the Lucille. We have Too Many Zoos, which is on the Liberty Bell. And then we have Ship of Fools, Grateful Dead tribute on the Harbor Lights. And I'm going to work the Liberty Bell and the Harbor Lights. I'm going to land in New York tomorrow around 4:30. And then I have a softball game at 7. And then I have therapy Friday morning in person. Then I'm going to go by the Relics office and check my mail. And then I'm going to go out to Liberty Bell for 2 o'clock on Friday. And then I'm going to work all those shows. Then I'm going to come back to Salt Lake City. I'm going to hang out here for a few days. And I'm going to drive to Las Vegas and see Jack White again and see Bill Burr at the Cosmopolitan. And I'm going to tell you all about it. And that's it, though. Now, that's it for Tuesdays with Jakey, which came to you on a Wednesday this week because I don't have time to be in a rush, to paraphrase the great Henry David Thoreau. Anyway, thanks for listening. God bless you. I feel like I had a lot of other things I wanted to talk about, but it's getting dark out here, and I'm kind of done talking. And, yeah, that's it. Cool. Peace. Catch me on socials at Jake Rocksoff. My phone number is 917-443-7615. If you want to send me a text message, you can also use that number to send me some money via Venmo. You want to send me a gallon of gas? $5? Stucky sends me $5 for every fucking episode I do. Why don't you be more like Stucky? Or be more like some of the other people who donate hundreds of dollars. Or don't donate at all. It doesn't really matter. But I don't know. I feel like I should say it anyway. But yeah, be more like Stucky. Everybody should be more like Stucky. And by that, I don't just mean with $5, but I mean being an amazing artist and a father and a generous spirit. I guess that's it for today, right? Yeah, socials at Jake Rocksoff. Phone number, gave it to you. Yeah, okay. Peace. God bless. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. Text somebody you know. Tell them you love them. Yeah, happy Mother's Day. Belated Mother's Day. God bless and inshallah.